One of the best pieces of advice for finding deals is to look where other people are not looking. Many want vintage watches from the glory days of the 1950s and 60s, or they want the latest and greatest from the last few years. That middle ground is often forgotten because there's not a lot of romance around it and because a lot of the watches are regrettable. But that just means better bargains for the good stuff. It's Chrono 24's 20th anniversary this year, and we're looking back at the best neo-vintage watches from 20-ish years ago. The Y2K era of the late 90s and early 2000s is not the first choice for many hunters, but that's why we're looking there today. 20 years makes a difference, so we scoured the marketplace and rounded up a quick top 10 of watches from this period using everything we know today. We've got Rolex watches, plenty of non-Rolex watches, and one or two that I'm saving up for, so stick around. Let's start off with a 36mm Royal Oak from Audemars Piguet. It's the reference 25594, and it comes in a range of case materials and dial colors. Because of the integrated bracelet, the watch wears closer to a 38mm than it does a 36. And the dial layout is just beautiful with the symmetry of the day and date subdials and that moon phase that really pops as it catches the light. This is a very wearable model that offers more horological firepower than a standard time and date Royal Oak. Prices are slowly and steadily trending upwards, so you avoid the volatility of the more mainstream Royal Oak references, and you won't lose money on the sale either. If you like the colorful rarity of Rolex Stella dials, then you should definitely take a look at the soul sisters from the Daytona lineup. We're talking about the Daytona Beach, a quartet of absolutely out there Daytonas in pink mother of pearl, yellow mother of pearl, green hardstone, and blue lacquer. Each one is housed in a white gold case with a rare Roman numeral Daytona dial. These watches have been popping up more and more at auction, and they are certainly hard to forget. The straps alone are enough to make you fall in love, and they're a definite departure from the often sober and methodical Rolex MO. Price-wise, pink is generally the cheapest, starting around $50,000. Yellow is a little more expensive than green, and the blue is on top, and it can hit around $150. They're not cheap, but they're a beauty to look at, and looking's for free. Before Rolex created their own in-house automatic chronograph caliber, they had to use one from a third party, and why not choose arguably the first automatic chronograph movement, one that's changed very little over the last 30 years. We're talking about the Zenith El Primero movement inside the quote-unquote Zenith Daytona, reference 16520. You think the next generation with Rolex's first in-house automatic chronograph caliber would be the collector darling, but instead it's the 16520 Zenith Daytona. Now, why is that? Well, the watch world loves an oddity, and this is an unusual piece of history for Rolex and the Daytona. Prices for these seem to have stabilized recently, around $35,000 for the white dial and around $40,000 for the black. Speaking of Zenith, there are deals to be had on the Zenith Rainbow Flyback El Primero. This model was developed for the French Air Force in the mid-1990s, and the agreement was that Zenith would deliver 1,000 watches annually for a 4-year period. But au contraire, after the French election shortly thereafter, the contract was canceled, so Zenith pivoted and presented this watch as a civilian model at Basel World 1997. It's 40mm wide by 12.6mm thick, and it carries the El Primero caliber 405. Colorful watches are having a much deserved moment, and why not hit every color with the Rainbow Flyback El Primero? Oh, and prices start at only $3,500. Let's stick with the theme of affordable chronographs and talk about this killer Carrera from 1994. We've got the CS3111 in black and the CS3110 in silver. These were released on the 30th anniversary of the Carrera, and they're one of the best kept secrets in neo-vintage chronographs. This watch was created after TAG had taken over Heuer, but the DNA here is all vintage Carrera. The case architecture is super strong with these long, elegant lugs. You have tritium on the hands and outer markers, so it's only getting better with age. And it's 36mm in diameter, so if you have a small to medium-sized wrist and want a chronograph that you can comfortably wear, then this is the winner. It's also rather affordable with prices starting around $3,000. Okay, so here's one I should probably keep a secret because I'm personally saving up for it myself. It's the Cartier Santos reference 2319 made for the SIHH watch fair in the year 2002 with a production run of 2,000 pieces. The watch carries that classic Cartier look and feel, but with the added sportiness of the luminescent hands and hour markers atop a slate gray dial. Think of this as Cartier's version of the Rolex Explorer 1. It comes in a classic 29mm size, but because of the square shape, it actually wears closer to a 35 or 36mm. This would be an ideal candidate for a comeback edition if you're listening Cartier, but you can still find the neo-vintage versions floating around for about $7,500 to $8,500, and they're only getting more expensive. This is our last Rolex to discuss today. Some people are tired of hearing about them, but this watch is cool. It's the Rolex Chronograph, sometimes called the Thunderbird for its connection to the US Air Force aerobatics team. Now this is a spin off the Datejust, and its rotating bezels served as the blueprint for the Submariner, and it can be considered the godfather of Rolex sport models. Now you can find 4-digit references from the 1950s, but we'll focus today on the final examples from the early 2000s. They sport the classic 36mm case in either steel or two-tone. You get a roulette date wheel and that striking red seconds hand. If you're looking for a go anywhere, do anything watch somewhere between sport and dress, then consider this. It's unlikely to be reintroduced, which only adds to the rarity of these. Prices for the reference 11624 start around $6,500 USD, so they're fairly affordable and fairly stable in price as well. Next up is a solid gold Perpetual calendar split-second chronograph starting around $12,000. I'll repeat that, a solid gold Perpetual calendar split-second chronograph for the price of a Datejust 41. For some excellent neo-vintage, check out the Vinci. This IWC reference 3751 debuted in 1995. You have IWC's signature Perpetual calendar display with that 4-digit year window down near 7 o'clock. That's combined with a retropont, i.e. split seconds chronograph module for timing multiple events. And that's all wrapped in 18 karat yellow gold or platinum if you like. The Da Vinci style floating case is an acquired taste if we're being honest, but the value for money here is undeniable. This is the other watch that I'm currently saving up for, so maybe just skip this part of the video. It's the Omega Speedmaster 3594.50, which is unfortunately called the replica. The watch debuted in 1997 to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Speedmaster, and it had a 5-year production run ending in 2003. Now some may call this a Franken watch, but it feels more like a greatest hits. It pairs the original broad arrow style handset with a later moon swatch style case with those lyre lugs. The steel bezel is a beautiful touch, as is that applied Omega logo and the retro typeface used for the Omega name. It's got the caliber 1861 inside, so it's easy to maintain and repair when you have to. Prices for these go as low as $4,000, but you'll want to watch out for signs of corrosion on the hands and perhaps pay a little closer to $5,000 for a worry-free example. Last but not least, it's Patek, baby. We're talking about the Aquanuat reference 5060, which was launched in 1997 to help attract younger customers to the brand. Now they should have just invented Instagram, but this works too. The Aquanuat has seen a huge rise in popularity in the last few years, but why not snatch up the OG? You have your choice of sporty steel and dressy yellow gold, both starting around $38,000. The watch was originally unveiled as the Nautilus Aquanuat, and you can still find examples with the word Nautilus printed on the clasp. Now whether you do a 5060A or a 5060J, you'll be 5060 OK with the timeless Patek on your wrist. Alright, my jokes are getting worse, meaning it's time to wrap this up. The Y2K era of the late 90s and early 2000s is a goldmine if you know what to look for, and this top 10 list is enough to get you started down more than a few rabbit holes. And remember, look where other people aren't looking. Which one of these 10 is your favorite? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And what did we miss? Let us know in a comment below. I'm Thomas Hendricks of Chrono 24 in New York City. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.